Cancel culture is dramatically withdrawing support for celebrities or companies who are perceived to have done or said something offensive. It often happens on social media. I know you've seen it, where people call for boycotts, public shaming, or the destruction of someone's career, entire brand. Whether it's Ellen DeGeneres, Chrissy Teigen, or Blake Lively, culture commentator Samara Gill and I give our verdict on who should be uncanceled in Hollywood and why. These are my LA Diaries. Hi, all. Kinsey Schofield here with Samara Gill. I know that you recognize her from What Just Happened with Kevin O'Sullivan or Sky News Australia, where she is a culture commentator. Today, we are going to talk about celebrities that have been canceled and if we think that we should forgive them or not. I don't know. There are some people on this list. We're going to have some negative feedback. What's your vibe?
Yeah, I'm ready to go. I was so excited when you brought this to me. This is one of my favorite topics to talk about. The media tries to trial people so much these days, and I think that some people can be brought back from the dead. I think there's some redemption in there.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk a little bit about what is the difference between cancel culture and holding people accountable, because I do think it's important that we hold people accountable, and I'll just throw this name out there already, Meghan Markle. I think one of my biggest issues with Meghan is virtue signaling. And I think we should call that out when we see it. Somebody, you can't tell us that you are like the second coming of Mother Teresa. And, but we know behind the scenes, you're literally accused of being a bully. What is the difference between cancel culture and holding somebody accountable? I don't want to cancel Meghan. Like, she can do whatever she wants. Release 10 Netflix shows. But I do think that I wish she would change her behavior. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, you're completely right. I think when I look through the list of people that we've sort of selected today, and Meghan included, these people that present one thing and then behind the scenes are the other, and that tends to be their key issue. I think when you're up front, we don't see a Rosie O'Donnell on this list. We're not seeing a Chelsea Handler, for example, because they are upfront as to who they are. You'll never see, we mentioned Kevin O'Sullivan, you'll never see him on this list. That man is who he is. And I think that authenticity is what prevents a lot of people from being canceled. And when we look at, Chrissy Teigen, Ellen DeGeneres, people who really preached a lot of stuff that they did not actually do behind the scenes, they are the ones who are now facing the consequences of promoting this almost toxic positivity, if I would like to call it that.
Absolutely. And there is a way back, because I was thinking, is this even like a silly topic? But we forget Katherine Heigl canceled after Grey's Anatomy when she said she didn't want to be put up for, I believe it was an Emmy Award at the time. She asked that they not consider her because she didn't feel like the writing met her expectations. She was destroyed for that. Everybody said she was difficult to work with. And it was years later where they realized she was actually a really nice person who just had high standards for herself and was trying to make things fair. And so she's been forgiven. You forget Winona Ryder. You forget Winona Ryder stole some panties. She stole, she was caught shoplifting. Nobody talks about that anymore. Robert Downey Jr. With his substance abuse issues, we love him now. We champion him. And to your point, it's that authenticity of his. He just is so pure and open and honest about everything he's gone through. I hesitate to get into Rob Lowe's salacious past with the what tape, the Clintons, everything. But let's talk first about Chrissy Teigen. She faced.
Let's get into it.
Yeah, I know, right? She faced kind of, I'd say, the biggest crisis in her career back in 2021 when some old social media messages surfaced, and she was bullying a reality star named Courtney Stodden behind the scenes. She's a model and a singer, and I don't think it matters who she was bullying. It's the fact that she was bullying a teenage girl, telling her to go end herself in DMs. There were also some messages that came up that were just so weird about her watching the show Toddlers and Tiaras. There was just a definite pile on, but some of this is absolutely justified based on her behavior. What are your thoughts on Chrissy, and how has she tried to recover since then?
I have so many thoughts. I think in the Chrissy Teigen scenario, it's really about She's the essence of when these woke virtue signalers actually get a taste of their own medicine. Because I think that with this situation, and I was looking at a lot of the DMs that surfaced, I was re-looking at them in preparation for this podcast episode because I was really into it at the time when it came out, because I really didn't like her. There was always something about her that was not authentic, that was really inauthentic, because you can see that she's trying to stand for her beliefs, what she feels is right, but she's actually dying on that stone because she's basically virtue signaling, but in the process making someone who's already feel even worse. So
Right.
I think that when this stuff came out, obviously her line got pulled, that she had at Macy's, was it?
It was Target, yeah.
Oh, Tarjay. Wow. Okay. Even a little bit more highfalutin. But she did suffer the consequences. But I don't know. Do you think that she's been able to come back from this whole cancellation?
It's interesting to me because I saw recently a girlfriend of mine at a John Legend's children event. I don't know if he was like releasing music for children or something, but I
Right.
thought, wow, well, first of all, speaking of Meghan Markle, a lot of these people do get back into people's good graces through their significant other, and I think that that is her way in because he's generally pretty liked.
Oh, he's Mr. Nice Guy. Yeah.
Yeah, and I do think that there are efforts when it comes to him and like children's things. I do think that it's almost an effort to inch her closer to redemption. I'm not there yet.
Absolutely.
I'm with you. I think she has a really ugly spirit, and I just don't. I don't want her on my radar. I don't need to see
No.
her on a red carpet, and I'm not going to buy her pots and pans. I just kind of think she's shown me exactly who she truly, truly is, and I don't want to mess with that. My verdict would be that she can stay in the canceled pile.
Yeah, I mean, I always like to look into people's childhoods when I see cancellation, and I think we'll get into that a little bit with the other characters that we're going to look at this
Yeah.
for this episode. But she didn't really have any like trauma or anything that she was dealing with. I don't think she really has an excuse for her behavior, and she fits in the Meghan Markle category. She was a briefcase girl, and then she like won a couple of Miss Universe contests or something. She wasn't really that notable. She only really became famous when she started dating John
Yeah.
Legend. So, in my
Thank you.
opinion.
Thanks, John Legend. We're all out there looking for our John Legend, aren't we?
She's still in my canceled basket. I'm with you, Kinsey.
Kevin Spacey. I can't hear the name Kevin Spacey now without thinking about Kevin O'Sullivan, seeing him in the makeup room and how excited he was when he saw him in the makeup room at Talk.
Yes,
And he was like,
yes.
oh, he was so nice. But
He said,
and
"Oh, you've got a lovely name," to Kevin. Kevin Spacey, Kevin. Oh, yeah.
nice. And yeah, that's perfect introduction. Now this story to me is I think that this story to me is easier to cover now that we know that there have been several court cases internationally, and judges and juries that have been like, I don't think this holds up. But he was canceled in 2017 because of multiple allegations of sexual misconduct and assault. The first public accusation came from the actor Anthony Rapp, who claimed that Spacey made an unwanted advance towards him when he was just 14 years old. And this happened in the 1980s. There's also some stories. The reason why this like blew up in the UK too was because of some of his alleged behavior that happened as an artistic director of the Old Vic Theater. Now, I hate to say this, but like I feel like a lot of these stories, when you have a Me Too moment, there are true stories, but also there are people that try to take advantage of the I don't know if it's the direction, the cancellation. I mean, with Diddy, I'll even say that with Diddy, I believe the victims, but I guarantee you in this list of 12,000 people that have left voice messages on these attorneys' phones that are trying to get involved, not all of those people have authentic stories. So when it came to Kevin Spacey, I wondered if this was a pile-on, if people saw an opportunity, um, and explain how it affected his career.
I mean, it affected his career massively. We talk about the talk interview. I think everyone found it really harrowing how he was literally crying to Piers Morgan about the fact that he was going to lose his house. And I know that not everyone's sympathetic to a Hollywood actor, on the precipice of probably losing their multi-million dollar property. But you could really see that he was deeply psychologically affected from it. And we talk about also what was at stake here. The lawsuits that were brought were for millions and millions of dollars. And, when you discuss Diddy, it's, of course, there's been 12,000 voicemails or, what you say there. That's also, there's money involved. And I think that can cloud sometimes what's going on. I mean, it was $40 million in damages that the first person that accused him was seeking. Now that's a lot of money, even for a Hollywood actor. And I think it really destroyed him, all the lawyer fees. And then the fact that he got kicked off all these projects that he was currently working on. They had to go and refilm the Ridley Scott film that he was in, All the Money in the World. And he really was blacklisted from Hollywood. He was told that he would never work again. Then all the charges get dropped. So it's like he was basically, the jury was the media and he was canceled and that was it. And then the truth comes out, the real jury, the legal jury with lawyers involved, all that truth comes out, everything's dropped. So I'm really wondering now where to go from here. And like, will he have do you think he could have a career in Hollywood again? Do you think
I
that's
do. I know this is like, I know people are going to be mad at me about this. I do, because I really think he's talented.
I mean,
and
yeah.
I hate to say this out loud, but a lot, Weinstein and Kevin Spacey and some of these people were behaving behaving the way they were behaving because at the time that was acceptable behavior in Hollywood. I mean, it's so disgusting.
Absolutely.
It's so disgusting, but it was.
No, it is. And I think people also forget that he was properly a theater actor. That was his background. And so a lot of these accusations were before he was famous, first of all. And there's lots of like sort of unclaimed rumors that this actor who accused him of that was kind of a little bit facetious because Kevin ended up being really successful and he didn't. Like, that's all rumors, but that, there could be something there. But you're right. Within theater, especially English theater, it does get you're in very close quarters working together. And I'm not trying to justify any of Kevin's alleged behavior, but you get very close. And also, it was of the time. This is stuff that happened over 20 years ago. The Me Too movement was not even nearly a thing. This was just the industry. It was all very all over the place and quite unsophisticated, if people would imagine, behind the scenes.
All right. So, well, I think he's going in the uncanceled pile for me. What is your vibe?
Yeah, I would uncancel him. I think in the court of law, he's been found not guilty, and that's good enough for me. And I think that he just needs to get his life back. One thing was I spoke to the makeup ladies who dealt with him when he did come onto our show, and they said that his whole entourage was absolutely lovely. And I think that you can judge a person a lot by who they surround themselves with. And they said they were some of the nicest people. So, I'm not saying that's a complete character retribution, but I think he's surrounded by good people now, and I just hope the best for him.
That's a great note. Thank you for sharing that. I did not get to talk to the makeup ladies, but you're right. They get the best gossip in that room. All right,
God.
let's shift to Ellen DeGeneres. Ellen, I think that this actually surprised a lot of people that are outside of the Hollywood bubble because she had such a happy-go-lucky, silly, glow. It was 2020 when the allegations of a toxic work environment, I believe it was BuzzFeed that initially released the report, rocked the Ellen DeGeneres show. And, it wasn't necessarily Ellen. She was definitely included in this, but it was producers that were being inappropriate, vulgar, nasty with their words, intimidating, emotionally abusive. And there was an investigation and some of those people were terminated. But it is like attitude reflects leadership. And if those people that were producers felt that they had the ability to treat people that way, it was because somebody was given them permission to feel, that empowered. And that's why a lot of people pointed the finger at Ellen. And then you did see a lot of other stories coming out, her being ugly to waitresses and things like that. she did one more season of her show before she says she chose to step back. I definitely feel like I mean, I've seen the promotion for her new Netflix show. I have not had any desire to click on it. I'd have, I know she's giving her rescue chickens to Meghan Markle. I have no desire to engage in that discussion any deeper than that. I just am kind of over her too. I mean, how has this affected her in the long run? Netflix is still giving her a call, but do people care? Do people want her back?
Yeah, I mean, I don't care. That's for one. I think I watched snippets of her Netflix series. It seems like Netflix will give a special to basically anyone these days. I mean, harking back to some the Duke and Duchess, but I think that she didn't seem very apologetic at all. Actually, in a lot of the jokes, she was like, "I got canceled for being mean." Ha ha ha, and then waiting for laughs. And I think it's like, no, you got canceled because you ended your show every single day for over 20 seasons with "be kind." That's the last thing you said to your audience. And you pretended to be this amazing, happy go lucky friend of Hollywood when behind the scenes, people couldn't even look you in the eyes because that was one of the things that they weren't allowed to do. People on your team, people who worked closely with you. And I think that it all started because there was obviously cries from some of her staff about her behavior. And then a Reddit page popped up. And then it just unleashed. I mean, there were thousands of, not thousands, maybe hundreds of claims of people that have worked with her that had had terrible experiences. And I think that, yeah, she does surround herself with, people like Meghan and Harry. I mean, she famously helped Meghan adopt that dog that then, who knows, got thrown to the wayside or readopted or something when Meghan got her new life. But it's interesting that those two are friends. I have to say that's also something to be commented on because,
Well,
as I said
Chrissy
earlier,
Teigen, Chrissy Teigen too. Remember, she shared the jam. She was like one of the last people to share the jam. So a
that's called
pretty solid canceled list we got going on here.
that's my nightmare dinner party. That's what I'll tell you. I mean, that's like I would be out the door quicker than you could see if those three people were sitting at the table ready to, have some red wine or whatever they're drinking out there in Montecito. But I think it's quite interesting with Ellen. She canceled herself and now she's trying to crawl back. And I don't think there's that audience there anymore. When that stuff comes out and your whole brand is built on being a nice person, forget about it. Seriously. I mean, what do you think, Kinsey? Do you think
I think that there's so much disappointment associated with it because it turns out she's not necessarily as kind as she is. Also, I look at her and I look at all of the success she has had, and congratulations. I mean, that's incredible, all of the success that she's had. She doesn't need any more money. She doesn't need Netflix. It's like,
No.
honestly, with a lot of these people that we're discussing today, sometimes it's as simple as going away for a little while. Allow people the time to forgive and forget, and then come back and do whatever it is you want to do. But she doesn't need the money. She has all the money in the world. She has a beautiful wife. She has a beautiful life. Just go away for a
Portia's
little while.
lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
Portia's lovely.
I'm still saying canceled. Hanging
Yeah,
to canceled.
I'm saying cancel. I can't come back from that because she basically lived, in my opinion, she lived a lie for the past 20 or so years. And I think that, she does pin it on, oh, I'm a woman and that's why. It's like, no, I think it's a bit deeper than that. I think you were a terrible person. And we can't, when there's hundreds of people coming out and saying that, it's very hard to push back against it.
Exactly. And some of the stories were so relatable, just kind of a cruelty at a dinner table. And if you've ever been a waiter or you've ever had to serve someone, when somebody in her position that you're excited to see walk in, you're excited that Ellen is sitting in your section or your table,
Totally.
and you are a fan of that person, and she treats you cruelly, and she makes you feel this big, and you're just there trying to pay your bills. You really feel for people when you read those stories, and it makes you really resentful of all of the support you've given Ellen, whether you've purchased a ticket to one of her shows or you've sat in her audience or you sat at
Yeah.
home watching her shows. You really regret supporting her, and see you regret contributing to the amount of success that she has. So I think she's going to stay in the canceled pile. So far, I feel like the audience is probably with us. This is where everything goes south. because I
Yeah, I was sorry. While you were talking, I was thinking of that Dakota Johnson Limes thing where I just remembered it. I was like, for me, that was when I'm like, she's never coming back. Dakota Johnson called her out on her, let's just say, crap.
yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people actually pinpoint as that the end of her career, because she was, as you said, she was rude to waiters, she was rude to everyone lower than her. A lot of the time, assistant producers, runners on the show, and she would always be nice to celebrities, people like Meghan Markle, people like Dakota Johnson. But I think she always used to come with these rows on her show of like, oh, you didn't come to my birthday party, I invited you. And Dakota called her out on her crap, and I was very proud of her for that. So yeah,
Yeah,
anyway, I
well,
want to add that little tidbit in because I remember that as just defining moment for
just
Ellen.
yeah, and we love Dakota because she's so authentic, because Dakota will say, actually no, I'm going to correct that narrative right now, and
Yes,
that she's
exactly.
consistent in the way that she is, and you do hear that she is exactly the way she is on TV and in real life too. Now this story, I can't believe that I can't believe that we're going to go into this, and I this is where everybody's going to blow us up in the comment section. Armie Hammer
I'm
canceled
ready.
2021. It was after a series of disturbing allegations about his behavior in relationships. Now, this controversy began when leaked social media messages allegedly from Hammer describing graphic fantasies, domination, and cannibalism were released. And I'm going to read some of this word for word because it's such a delicate topic that I don't want to miss anything, or I don't want to describe something incorrectly. Some of these messages were shared by anonymous women suggesting that Hammer had a predatory or manipulative approach to relationships. Shortly after these messages surfaced, several of these women came forward accusing him of emotional abuse, manipulation, coercion during their relationship. One woman accused him of assault and filed a formal complaint with the police. Hammer immediately denied the allegations. He tried to get in front of it. He denied any criminal wrongdoing, claiming all interactions were consensual. And after years of police investigations into Hammer, the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office announced last year that criminal charges would not be filed against him. He's out of work. He is, we've seen him selling timeshares,
Yeah,
you
we all
know?
saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Cayman
mean,
Islands.
he's so done. And I'm going to tell you, The Man from Uncle is one of my favorite movies.
Yes.
I I
Oh my
can't
gosh.
help it. Like, I'm so
Social
I
network.
The
Oh,
Social Network. I really think he is a great actor. He has two young children. I don't think we should romanticize him anymore. Like, but just throw him in roles where he is the bad guy. But in
yeah.
this case, I'm like, let's get this guy back to work so he can take care of his small children. I mean, he's a pretty face and he comes from wealth. It's all he knows how to do. And his
That's
as
like
far as I
welcome to Hollywood, though.
yeah,
Like
yeah, it's
such a
like, but
crime.
it's not like he can go become a marketing executive, though. You know what I
No, and
mean?
he found it really hard. I think I know. Looking at interviews and stuff that he said when he tried to sell those timeshares, it was very difficult because people were coming to see Army. People weren't coming to buy those timeshares. I mean, he was working at a local hotel and they were sort of advertising it. And people book in, and it wasn't a successful pursuit. That he can't go work at a Starbucks.
Right.
That's not going to happen. And I don't even think the way that he was raised, he was built for that.
No.
So you speak about his kids as well. I mean, I feel like I'm going a little bit far along in the story here, but he wasn't even able to see his kids without someone there monitoring him because of these allegations, a lot of which were unfounded. And the fact that, yeah, his kids had to be there with sort of a helper in the background, you could see how devastated he was about that in some of his sit down interviews when he was talking about it. And I really did feel for him, because these allegations, first of all, he never ate anyone. I
I
mean,
think
can we
that's
agree on
important to
that?
state. I think that's a very important thing to state there. Yes, exactly.
Like, I mean, our culture is so into sexual liberation, BDSM, go crazy, do whatever you want to do, don't kink shame me. And then we end up kink shaming him because after reading all the text messages, going through it all, I can just see that he was a kinky guy with clear psychological problems and, you know, maybe some childhood problems that hadn't been addressed or something like that. I mean, we know he was in the wraps of addiction at the time that these messages were sent. He said that he would do every drug under the sun. And then when his friendship group was done with him, he would move on to the next friendship group and keep doing more drugs. So he was clearly in a horrible place at the time. And he's since, you know, been to rehab. He's gotten help for that. I think that he's really tried to redeem himself. I know Robert Downey Jr. allegedly, I don't know if it came out he didn't pay for it, but he really took him under his wing and tried to help him. And we spoke about him much earlier on the podcast. Robert Downey Jr. had his own issues with that. So yeah, Armie, what is his what? Why do people really hate him? What do you think, Kinsey? Why? What is the main thing that people thought? Oh, I'm never going to watch you anymore, and all execs dropped him.
I know why. It's because of your statement that we thought he was this beautiful romantic guy that he plays in all of these movies, that he,
Yeah.
you know, we thought he was the handsome leading man, and it turned out that he had a darker side, and it disappointed us. But you know, it reminds me a lot, and I do believe that the women that came out and accused him of things, I'm sorry that they're hurt. I'm sorry that they
Yeah.
experienced that. And we should say the same thing about Kevin Spacey's people. Where I'm sorry that you experienced that, and I'm sorry that that had to have been for you to pursue that. That had to have been extremely traumatic for you. But I look at the Garth Brooks case that's going on right now here in the States. We have a woman who files a lawsuit anonymously against Garth Brooks. Garth's team says she allegedly leaked that he was the anonymous person she was filing against. She attaches these text messages to the lawsuit, and you are looking at that, looking at some of these text messages going, holy cow, this looks consensual. This looks like a
Yeah.
consensual affair that turned sour when he didn't, and when you didn't get your way. You said, I'm going to publicly humiliate you. You are with the most famous, you know, one of the most famous female country singers in the world. Together you're a powerhouse, and I'm going to jeopardize that. And I know that there are going to be some people that disagree with me, but to me, I feel like with Garth Brooks, it's a celebrity extortion situation. And I think some of these women are disappointed that the leading man didn't leave his wife and family for them, because he said he would, because he was in
Oh
the
yeah.
moment, and he's a horrible person. I think sometimes it was a consensual relationship, but the woman didn't get out of it what she wanted. And things get really nasty after that.
Sometimes we need to take human emotions into things and actually not look at stuff so clinically, especially when it comes to stuff like just canceling a celebrity.
Right.
We need to really look at the situation and what happened, because every situation is different, and we can't just say, I guess it was, and this is what happened with Armie, is that it all came out at the height of the Me Too movement. So we were really in that bubble of thinking that everything that came out had to be prosecuted by us, the people. And I don't blame a lot of people who probably came out and thought that he was crazy. I was definitely one of them at the time. But now that we have, hindsight is 2020, we can see that a lot of this, as you said, is maybe someone who just didn't get their way at the time. I mean, he was married to Elizabeth Chambers, who I love, and she's a great woman, but these were all the other women in the situation. So.
Yeah. Speaking of Elizabeth, and talking about just the disappointment in Armie, and he's just this dreamboat, and you want him to be the guy in all of these movies. And I followed Elizabeth specifically to see their Christmas card every year, because every year they had a very similar family Christmas card, and it just made you melt. And that is one of the
too perfect.
yes, and that was one of the reasons why the Armie thing felt like such betrayal. But I'm putting him in my uncancel category. Let's put him back to let's get him back to work. He's got to pay for his kids to go to school.
You want Uncle 2.0, man from Uncle coming back. I want that too.
Very underrated movie. Very underrated movie.
Well, he tried to have a career in Hollywood, and a lot of people deemed it as quite unsuccessful. I guess he had all this money behind him, but he never was the leading man that he wanted to be. He kind of wanted to be like George Clooney status or but it never quite happened for him. I don't know if there's the space for him to rebuild his career to that level, but I think that maybe a part or two here, maybe in an indie film, could be the way that he could get back into the industry.
Yeah, you know who I forgot to put on our list of people that have redeemed themselves is Johnny Depp, and he's done that way. He's just like, I'm just going to work with my own friends,
Yep.
and I'm going to build my career back up. And it's probably not the best example because I do believe that Amber Heard was the most toxic in that scenario, and there were a lot
Yeah.
of things that she said that I believe were dishonest. And she was just trying to crush him, but you just saw him mind his business and be creative, and he found his flow by just focusing on the future, working with people that he collaborated well with, and we've all forgiven him and we're excited to see what he does next.
Totally. I mean, he turned up, when the trials happened and it ended, he turned up in a pub somewhere in the middle of sort of country town Britain, and everyone was like, what's going on? And he was just performing his set and doing his thing. He wasn't asking for another Pirates of the Caribbean. And you're completely right. He's definitely doing a more organic entry back into, the mainstream. And I think that's working out really well for him.
Oh wait, so confirm or deny, what's your verdict on Armie Hammer? Is he back in the fold, canceled or uncanceled?
I'm a sucker for blonde men, so I mean, I hate that that's my justification, but it's gonna have to be yeah, he's uncancelled in my opinion. He didn't need anyone. If he ate
Yeah.
someone, sure, be different. It would be very different.
This one is probably going to be a little controversial too when it comes to the audience. Blake Lively, recently canceled over the promotion of her latest movie, It Ends With Us. I still haven't seen the movie, but here are the reasons. She promoted her various brands throughout this movie launch. She had a brand new hair care line that came out, and then she has an alcohol brand called Betty Buzz. And people said it seemed really inappropriate considering the fact that the theme was domestic violence to be like, oh, and buy my alcohol, and oh, and make sure you shampoo. I get it, but you also see celebrities do that every other day here in Hollywood. Framing the movie as a girls' night, some critics felt Lively's framing of the movie was insensitive and out of touch. Awkward interviews,
Yeah.
we saw
Yeah.
some of those from 2016 where
The
one
Justin Baldoni drama as well, her
yeah,
co-star and
yeah,
producer.
absolutely. I'm just gonna say it right now. I'm uncanceling her. I think all of this is stupid. I have no the people that are so mad about this are not somebody that would ever have to sit down with Blake Lively. I might have to sit down with Blake Lively, and I don't have any issue with Blake Lively. I thought, everybody has bad interviews sometimes.
No, you're completely right. And they were dredging up stuff about, she'd said to this person said, oh, I like your bump, this interviewer. And she goes, oh, I like your bump too. And it was, press junkets. That was probably her 50th interview of the 48 hours. I mean, she's tired, she's exhausted. And yes, she was pregnant at the time. Like, sure, if she's a bit snarky, like, what can you do? And it's interesting that you mentioned Johnny Depp. Justin Baldoni, her co-star, who they were basically pitted against each other at this point. I feel like if you don't know what happened, just quickly, it was her co-star. He was producing the film, he was directing it, and he's known as sort of this bastion for women's rights and female inclusion and making sure that everyone feels great. And he's very sort of, he's like the perfect man if it was ever designed by a woman. So of course she looks like the devil up against him, and he got no criticism for the entire press tour. I did a bit of digging, and it turns out that he had hired the PR veteran called Melissa Nathan, who represented Johnny Depp during his trials. So he hired her as his PR person during the movie premiere and all the press that went with it. So it's a little bit interesting that
It was a smart strategy, that's for sure. I think
yeah.
that's absolutely. Yeah, and so I have a couple of things to say about that. Like for for one, your hormones are crazy when you're pregnant. Maybe she was having a bad day because she, her hormones are out of whack. We don't know. I mean, like our bodies are incredible, but our bodies also can be a burden. And what's going on can be a burden. Like we do not know what was going on with her mentally or physically that day. And then I am a real sucker for Ryan Reynolds. Ryan Reynolds is a royalist. He is kind. And Ryan, we get so much more from him professionally and we get so much more from him personally. He does so many more interviews. He releases so much more content and
Yeah.
movies and commercials. And he has been very open about his anxiety. And he said, like, I've tried to turn it into my superpower, but it's been crippling. And I look at her in interviews and I think she has anxiety in interviews too. I think she's
Yeah.
overwhelmed and doesn't want to be there, doesn't want to give too much of herself away. I think that she's a little fragile in interviews, and I think it's anxiety related, and I sympathize with her for that. And I mean, I know that there are going to be people that say it's her job. She's contractually obligated to do this. Turn on your actress hat and just be an actress. But I imagine that that's a really difficult position to be in. You and I can sit here and talk all day about this stuff, but if you started hammering me, asking me questions about my personal life, I would be uncomfortable. I would.
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying. I think I come up against you a little bit. I think in the way that when you mention, her husband Ryan Reynolds, he had a film coming out at the same time. So he had the Wolverine Deadpool movie. I'm not as tapped into that section of pop culture, but he had another film coming through. And yeah, I think it was a little bit shameless how they timed the two premieres at the same time. And I think that the film that she was promoting, It Ends With Us, it was about domestic violence. And to be honest, I think that the tone deaf thing did come from the fact that I think she was treating her press tour like it was the Barbie film. She was taking a leaflet out of that book, but not realizing that the Barbie film was a completely separate entity. This film was a quite serious film that was based on a very serious book about domestic violence. And I think she sort of said, like, she tweeted, oh, put your flower crowns on and like go out with the girls for a movie. And it's like, I love that, but I think it discredits a lot of the reality of what domestic violence is. It's not pretty. It's not about wearing a flower crown and going out to the movies. It's about struggle, abuse, lack of
Survival.
money, financial control. Yeah, all of that stuff. So I think that she probably could have treaded a little bit more lightly when it came to that sort of thing. I kind of could sense why people were disliking her with that. But I think at the end of the day, she was pushing a product and she was having to do her job in that way. So I think a lot of PR teams saw the success of the Barbie movie and thought, oh, we'll do that. We'll have these amazing outfits like what Blake was wearing to all the premieres. We'll promote the film like that. But I think people weren't realizing that it's a little bit more serious than your
Yeah.
average,
Yeah, you realize that
happy-go-lucky film.
she's surrounded by a lot of yes people when you actually break down everything that went on, because realistically she had such a powerful production company behind her that somebody from their PR team should have stepped in and said, what the hell are we doing?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
why you can't, this is not the tone either. And I guess it is, at the end of the day, it's like nobody wants to question Ryan Reynolds or his wife,
I
so
mean, they're
they
billionaires. I think he's a billionaire off his alcohol company. And I think that they're very much fueled by capitalism, which isn't the devil, but I'm saying it's all about pushing this and that. And they probably lost the narrative a little bit in between. And I think Justin Baldoni on the other side of things thinks of it as like a little indie film that he's trying to maneuver and shift and direct. And I think I heard from on set that Ryan Reynolds was being brought to the set and trying to help with the directing. And I
I
think it
think he
really
rewrote
rubbed
a
Justin.
scene or something.
Oh, of
Imagine that
course he
being
did.
your movie.
Of course he did. And like, that's, I mean, you know it, Kinsey, because you're in Hollywood, you know these types. It's going to rub anyone up the wrong way when you try and mess with their little creative project that they've been working on for years. And then these two Hollywood bigwigs come in and they're like, no, this is how it should happen. So, I think that it's the classic clash of two worlds with them. I just,
Yeah, I will also say really quickly that I follow her sister on
Oh,
Instagram, Robin Lively, and she is the sweetest woman in the
aw.
entire world. So of course I'm a little sympathetic because I see just like the sunshine that her sister is, and I have to assume that they're similar. Wait, what was your verdict? Cancel or uncancel Blake?
I'm really on the fence. I'm going to go against you with this one. I think she's still cancelled in my mind. But
Wow.
yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's going to be a lot of people that agree with you in the comments. Whether you agree with us or disagree with us, let us know in the comments below. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share this video with a friend. Thanks so much for watching, and I can't wait to have you back. You know, there's like 300 other people that have canceled that we could